Okay, before we get started on this next one, I want to go over something pretty basic. You're taking x to the power of 8 divided by x to the power of a third, but how do you divide that when you don't know what x is? Well, you can't really divide it, so what you're going to do is simplify it, okay? So on the top, you have 8x to the 8th. Here's what that means. So this x I don't know, that means there's 8 of those numbers multiplied together. So write 8, make sure you got 8 of them. This x to the third means those same x's, there's 3 of those multiplied together. When I'm dividing, I can cross out common factors on top and bottom. And that leaves me with how many x's? It leaves me with 5. Now rather than do all that crap, what you're going to do when you're dividing is cross out the smaller one and you subtract it from the other side, okay? So 8 minus 3 is 5. Actually, not subtract it. You just can do the opposite of what it is on that side. Today it'll always be positive, so you're going to minus it. Okay, same here. Get rid of that. That was a 2 positive, so I minus it. And that would be x to the 10th. Cross out the smaller, minus it. That's x to the third. Cross out the smaller, minus it, and that's m to the 6th. Now we're going to get into more complex expressions. This is how it's done, okay? I know that one's an easy one, okay? But here's how, but they're going to get harder. So if you want a way to line it up, look on top of the division line, you have x, okay? That's the only factor you have. Now look on, and it's to the 16th power. On the bottom, you have x. It's to the second power. Now on this line here, if you have the same factor on top and on bottom, you're going to get rid of the smaller exponent, and it was 2, so we minus it. That's to the 14th power. Now that's not negative, so it stays up here, and we can't figure that out on a calculator, so that's the answer, because I don't know what x is. Okay, next one, 3 lines. Now what do you have on top? You got a 5. Once you write it down, don't write it again. You can always add to it. Times x times y. Remember, the 3 and the 4 are powers, so is a 2, so I skip that when lining this up. Okay, now let's look on bottom. We have an x factor on bottom. Now let's do the top first. So we got 5. It would be to the first power, but it's in parentheses, so I got to take 1 times 2. That would be 2. Now x's, how many x factors do you have on top? There's just 1. It's to the third, so I take 3 times 2, and that would be 6. Now y, how many y factors do you have on top? Ignore the bottom till you get down there, okay? You have 1. It's to the fourth, but it's in parentheses, so you got to take 4 times 2, that's 8. Now the 7, only one factor is 7, so it's to the first power. And I'm not going to be multiplying it because it's not in parentheses. I'm just going to write a 1 down. Now let's move to the bottom. How many x factors do you have on the bottom? You have 1. It's to the fourth. We don't multiply it because it's not in parentheses. Now, you need to cross some things out. You have a 5 on top. Do you have that on bottom? No. X on top, x on bottom. So I get rid of the smaller one, the 4, and the opposite of 4 would be to subtract it, and that would be 2. Okay? So now everything's good. Okay? The bottom's now eliminated. It's not always going to eliminate, but it does here. Okay, all these powers, the 5 to the second, that's a positive power. Keep that where it's at. The x to the second, keep that where it's at. Basically on these first couple assignments, the one you did last time today, you're just basically rewriting this stuff. Now 5 to the second, could we figure that out? Sure, 5 times 5 is 25. Can you figure out what x to the second is? No, so leave it for the end, okay? Y to the 8th, you can't figure that out, leave it for the end. 7 to the first, you can figure out, that's just 7, okay? Now we're going to put those two at the end, the ones I'm unable to figure out because they're variables. Now don't forget, times those two numbers, times 25 by 7, okay? 175. That's the answer, 175 times x to the second times y to the 8th. Okay, next, look on top. You've got, just do top, separate the top from the bottom. Just look on the top here. I'll put that there so you're not looking at that. So you got 8x, y, okay? Now bottom you have 5x, y. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I thought you didn't write x down twice. I do when it's on bottom, okay? If there are two x's on top, I'd only write it once. Or on bottom, I'd only write it once. But when I have top, bottom, it's like I'm separating it. My battery's about to die here. I'll finish this problem, okay? 8 to the first, okay? That's in parentheses, so 1 times 2 is 2. Now x, how many x factors do you have on top of the line? You just have 1 on top. 3 times 2 is 6. And that's a 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Now let's go to the bottom. You have 1 factor of 5 on the bottom. It's to the 1, but it is in the parentheses, so I take the 1 times the 2. 2. X, 1. 1 times the 2, 2. Y is to the 1. 1 times the 2 is 2. Now you got 8 on top. You don't have 8 on bottom. You have x on top and x on bottom, so I get rid of the smaller one. And then minus 2, 4. Just do the opposite of 2, which is negative 2, which means minus 2. You have y on top and bottom, so get rid of the smaller one. That was a positive 2, so I subtract it. It's 2. Okay, now these all stay on top because they're all positive. The little exponents are all positive, and this stays on bottom stays on bottom because it's exponent. You just basically keep everything in the same place. Okay. So I can figure out 8 to the second. That's going to be 8 times 8. That's 64. So I cross that out, put 64. I can't figure that out. Can't figure that out. 5 to the second I can figure out. 5 times 5, that's 25. Put it on bottom though, because that's where the 5 to the second was at. Now these right here, we just bring them over. Okay, the two things I couldn't figure out. Now, what do you do at the 64 and 25? Well, up here there's a times dot. Here there's a division bar. So I'm going to take 64 divided by 25, but if I get a decimal like that 2.56 is, you need to just leave it and circle it. I don't want decimals. Okay. Now we'll continue